Okay, I'm Ian Hamilton. I'm with Recruitment Bot. Please bear with us because this is a bit ad hoc today. But the great thing about that is that the value that you guys get out of this is based on the questions that you ask us. All right, so don't be kind or anything like that. What we're going to do today is we're going to go through a quick round of introductions, and then I'm going to open up to the floor to see if we can get some conversation going around chatbots, programmatic, and I'm going to extend that out to anything recruitment tech related that you have any questions about. So first of all, the two Richards, right? That made my job really easy. Richard 1. Please introduce yourself. Tell us what you do.
Hi, I'm Richard 1, apparently. I also feel like a founding member of Westlife, and any minute there's going to be a key change. I'm going to stand up. I am co-founder of ClickIQ. For those people that aren't familiar with us, we are a talent attraction platform, and lots of sort of AI automation, optimization of job advertising across multiple networks, job boards, including our friends at Indeed over there as well. But I can hopefully answer some questions regarding programmatics, any kind of recruitment marketing, having been in the industry since 1995.
Richard 2.
Richard 2.
Excellent.
Hi. I'm Richard Hutchinson. I'm from Capital Resourcing. I'm responsible for developing our talent generation and also driving our innovation on how we deliver recruitment marketing and attraction into Capita, but also across our client base. So whilst I'm not an expert on chatbots or programmatic, we've potentially used some of it as part of how we deliver for our own client, but also our external clients as well.
Okay, cool. So programmatic. It's a buzzword everybody loves to use. Not many people understand. Right. So can I get you to give us an elevator pitch of what programmatics is?
So programmatics is basically, in its simplest form, a computer is buying advertising on your behalf. That is it. However, what it is generally referring to is the ability to buy advertising across the internet, and it's usually using some kind of geodemographic targeting, which allows you to specify, I don't know, if you're looking for Java developers in Slough, for example, it will allow you to target within a geographical basis people who perhaps have looked at websites which might cover, IT development, Java development, etc., etc., etc. You can also map against that additional things like have they looked at a job board. So when we looked at that, the candidate ID funnel that we showed about the pipeline of existing candidates, you can do a similar thing of that within an attraction piece. And it's a particularly interesting way of targeting passive candidates, I think when you look at programmatic in that light, it's quite an interesting model to use when you are targeting skill shortage areas. That said, it's not a cheap way of attracting candidates, and actually job boards is a much cheaper version of doing it. However, and you can buy across job boards, in fact our software does that programmatically as well, but generally when people talk about programmatic, it just means a computer's doing the buying, and they probably mean display advertising across the internet.
Okay, cool. So display advertising is so whenever you've visited the sofa shop, you see that sofa everywhere, all right? That's some of the stuff that you're doing, yeah? All right, cool. Okay.
I was just going to ask a question, actually.
Yeah, cool.
Would you say that the content at the end of that process is as important as what you're targeting?
Yes.
Okay, so certainly my experience is that it's not just about the people that you're going out to target, it's about how you then engage them to convert that into the process that you're trying to bring them into. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. So, great question. Why don't you give us an idea of how you plan your content? Do you do this sort of stuff? Do you plan your content for when people arrive on a landing page so that you're serving up the right
Yeah,
stuff?
I mean, certainly from a programmatic perspective, it's morely on a campaign basis. Okay. So it's really trying to get under the skin of a particular target audience. So we start by persona mapping the people that we're trying to target, get under the skin of who those individuals are, and really start the process of being able to understand what their lifestyle habits and choices are, so that we can start thinking about what's the right content that's going to resonate with them as an audience. And then we'll start to plan using a third party, how we actually start to serve that content to the right places.
Okay, cool. So I'll round off this part with, so we've been building chatbots for in-house corporate recruiters from about January last year. We launched it as a software as a service in November. Essentially, a chatbot is a piece of intelligent automation or artificial intelligence. So intelligent automation is a menu-driven style chatbot that is a really nice user functionality. It doesn't have machine learning. It doesn't have natural language processing. Doesn't have any of those buzzwords in it. I encourage clients not to be ashamed of that. It can be a really lovely user experience. At the other end of the scale, we build the full artificial intelligence. Some people might challenge me on that term later because there's different definitions of that, and I welcome those challenges, absolutely. But we adopt natural language processing and machine learning into our chatbots at the high-end scale, where we deliver a conversational job search and application experience for candidates. I'm not the developer of this, so it blows my head as much as it blows anybody else's head.
Can I just add in, actually, because what I think is interesting about the whole chatbot thing, and when I was at an event a couple of weeks ago and someone said, do you think that recruiters are going to be replaced by these AI robots? And the guy, everybody's, no, it's a people business, blah, blah. There's a guy in the corner who's chatbot developer was nodding enthusiastically and kind of, there's no way, that's not happening. But what is interesting, I think, and I think the role of the chatbots actually really important as we move forward in terms of the way that our industry is moving to automation from, whether it's programmatic advertising, if you advertise a role to passive candidates on Facebook, you need a way of communicating with those people. Now, the previous versions of Facebook jobs, and who knows what the next version will be like, you could only interact with people to apply for a job was through their instant messaging chat. So if you haven't got a chatbot, you're either going to have to employ a whole load of people to sit at desks 24/7 around the world to deal with those inquiries, because unfortunately when people are at work, they're not applying that often. So they'll pick the most inconvenient times for you as recruiters when you're back at home. So it's about closing that loop, and I think that programmatic is quite an interesting way of, if you start from the premise of I've got a job to fill, and I'm not talking about the employer branding stuff and the kind of higher content stuff, the ability to then retarget those people who perhaps have come to the website, they've viewed a job but they haven't applied, whether you engage at that moment through chatbots, whether you re-advertise that job content to them, whether you then target those people with actually higher level content like the guy Specsaver was talking about. There's some really cool stuff, and just by bringing the whole thing together into a seamless system allows us to do what we are supposed to do, and that is concentrate on hiring great talent. And I think what all these tools effectively do is they try and free up your time to be able to do all that stuff.
Yeah. Question. Have we?
Hi. Yeah. Question for Richard 1. So first of all, I love chatbots and I love programmatic. Both of them. Both got a phenomenal future in recruiting. Absolutely. But question for Richard 1 is, could you give us some examples of the very best kind of most effective calls to action that companies are using to get people to click on whatever it is they're being served up?
Apply now. Genuinely. I mean, I think it's back to the old, if you look at everything that's happened in marketing and whether as a sales professional you believe in the attention, interest, desire, action, all that kind of stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong, you have to engage with people, and people will only apply, as you rightly said in presentation, at that consideration point, and they have to be aware of your brand, but not every brand is big enough to be aware of, and then they'll do their research on Glassdoor, they'll look at their ratings, and some really interesting research about the fact that the difference between a 2-star and a 4-star rating on Glassdoor is double the conversion rate from click to apply. So if you need a reason to sell into your businesses why you guys should be doing some really good EVP type work and employer branding, then that perhaps is it. There's a limit in terms of, I don't think you should put lipstick on a pig. So if your organisation is terrible, no one's worked to be at least a bit honest about it, or else they're just going to leave within 3 months anyway. But I think that once they've clicked on that advert, I mean, yes, you can retarget them, but you have to click the button, the apply now, and ultimately that is what everyone wants to do. I mean, they want a job, as Katrina was talking about earlier. Now, I just want a job.
Yeah. Recently, we found that a chatbot converts better if you're talking about register your interest than apply. So whenever we're driving our advertising on Facebook, we're bringing people into the chatbot, we're showing them an opportunity on Facebook. We keep that opportunity vague, so we don't make it location specific in the advert. We offer them to register interest. You get a much higher conversion rate on people registering interest rather than applying.
Ian, does that change according to the audience in terms of the level or the type of people that you're engaging with?
So we were engaging with professional engineers and tradespeople to go offshore.
So you want to start a conversation with that population, whereas another population in the volume space, you want to start an application, you want to get them to apply immediately.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So is there any in-house recruiters in the room that's using Programmatics? That's willing to tell us how they're using it?
I'm amazed.
Wow. Okay.
Because there's some really simple stuff that would make your lives and your, really simple stuff that would make a huge impact to the response. I mean, it depends. If you at the end of it, this is a technology recruitment conference, so I'm probably wrong. Yeah, but the reality is those people are not reacting positively to job adverts on job boards. And actually, the whole passive candidate targeting using programmatics is a really key part of generating that interest. I mean, other than using Stack Overflow, GitHub, things like that, where you are engaging actively with those audiences, I am a little bit surprised that there aren't more people doing this stuff, because it is, it's much more cost effective than going to a recruitment agency out of desperation. That's for sure.
So, Richard,
can I just suggest that part of the issue is the understanding of how it works, and actually being able to explain to a hiring manager that you're going to go down the route of programmatic and what that actually looks like is really difficult to bring to life, and therefore the buy-in from a hiring manager is much harder to get, and therefore they continue to push you down the more traditional routes. That's a problem that we face, and we face that both internally but also externally when you're trying to bring to life the fact that we're going to work with clients in a more creative, innovative way, but you can't actually bring to life what programmatic looks like, because you can't actually map out the journey of where that is going to go, because it kind of just happens in the background. Does that make sense? Is that fair, or am I? Yeah,
I understand people are concerned. You don't know what the end ROI is going to be ultimately, and I think with all things you have to pilot and test and see if it works, and it doesn't cost a huge amount to pilot that stuff to see if it will be effective for your audiences, but the reality is that if you are looking at specific location-based roles, which most of us are, and specific skill shortages, and you can identify those shortages, then you can reach people, not necessarily on job boards, but across the internet as a whole, and promote yourself either as, with great content as a brand, or with actual job-specific content to actively get people to apply. Okay,
so being the person on the stage that's at the real front line of recruitment, okay?
You put me under the bus here.
Yep. So whenever you're talking to either a client or to your internal teams about expanding that mind to include programmatics into a campaign, how do you go about getting that buy-in? Because the folk in the room will probably have to go through the same journey.
So I guess for us, it's in some respects, it's being able to demonstrate the return on investments by trialling stuff and being able to case study. So we're lucky in that we've been able to do it, and therefore we have the case studies to demonstrate the success. Being able to take that into an individual client or an individual client need means that we need to do lots of case studies so that we've got the real examples across different areas. But it really is taking the plunge and being able to test it in the first instance, and then being able to demonstrate the return on investment that you get off the back of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think also it's worth mentioning that historically the entry cost of doing this stuff is quite high. So if you went to some of the bigger agencies or programmatic suppliers, the conversation starts at 10 grand. The reality is that is not the case anymore. Building tools around doing sort of micro campaigns around specific jobs where you are just retargeting people, let's say, who have clicked and not applied, or identifying skill sets and just throwing 20, 30 quid at a role in the programmatic way, just to kind of boost those response levels to a level that you have more confidence that you will hire. So there isn't that need to spend huge amounts of money from a testing point of view. You can actually do it on a much smaller budget now.
Plus you. Oh, well, he can wait. He can wait. Don't worry. Plus, what you're doing with that testing quite often is you're split testing. So you're learning what call to actions your candidates want. You're learning what messages they want. You're learning how to engage and interact with. And I think if I don't go to Adam, he's going to start jumping up and down.
No,
So,
I'm both patient and tenacious, so it's fine. Arm up. Question for Richard Hutchinson. As the innovation guy at Capita Resourcing, you're looking at a broad spectrum of different technologies that are supposed to enable better recruitment. What are the coolest things that you've been seeing recently?
I mean, that's a good question. So I'm going on a journey at the moment of trying to identify the tech stack that enables us to improve the candidate experience, the hire manager experience, the recruiter experience, from workforce planning all the way through to performance management. And as you can appreciate, in a conference where we've talked about lots of different technology, there's a vast amount of technology platforms out there. So part of my problem is finding the right platforms to solve that problem. I've been focused on things like immediacy as a challenge. I think we're in a world where candidates are expecting immediacy. You think about WhatsApp and the fact that you can see when someone's read a message, they expect to reply immediately. That's very different to putting a CV in and waiting 2 weeks to get a response. I'm looking at personalisation and the fact that people are expecting a journey that is personalised to them. They're expecting content that is personalised to them. I'm looking at machine learning because everyone's talking about it, and we're trying to find solutions that actually fit recruitment, that enable that space. And ultimately, I'm looking to identify stuff that enables a candidate experience that's seamless across the whole journey. So things like for non-people is on my radar, that build personalised websites and think of it from a consumer perspective. So they're very much based on an Amazon kind of experience. That's really quite exciting. Pocket Recruiter, which is a tool that enables us to be really efficient about how we source candidates, which puts the time back into the recruiters to actually spend time engaging with candidates rather than spending time building Boolean search strings and actually finding the candidates. Emborder, I think someone mentioned that earlier today, from an onboarding perspective, really excites me. So they're three platforms that I'm kind of excited, and I guess I should mention Candidate ID. We're trialling Candidate ID at the moment in Essex County Council, because I see the automation of that candidate engagement piece being really important to how we really take our talent pools into being something that's actually engaged and can add value longer term. Is that four that kind of make sense?
Okay, so can I open to the room? Is there anybody that has any questions about what we've talked about so far? There must be someone. Okay.
Going back to your first point on obviously intelligent automation and menu-driven chatbots, can you give us an example of, talk us through, because we're at those initial stages, when you say menu-driven chatbot?
Okay.
Could you provide one for us?
Sure. So it's much easier with a demo. So we'll maybe do this at some stage. But I'm going to ask you all to get your creative minds out and think it through with me. Right, so somebody arrives along to your website. Actually, if you want an example of this, the AA has a great menu-driven, what looks like a chatbot. I don't know if it is a chatbot or not, but it looks like a chatbot. You arrive along, it says hi, it offers you a number of buttons that you can click within the chatbot screen. One is locations, the next is career information, the next is search jobs, and you click on the button that you want to find out more information about. And typically what they do is they bring you through a journey or through a story of that particular layer of conversation. And then towards the end of it, they try to convert you into the next layer. So if you've clicked on, I don't know, the button might say career opportunities. It'll then bring you towards something that will talk about career progression. And then it'll ask you, would you like to apply for a job? So it it keeps that going. But one of the great things about a chatbot, and it happens across both sides, is that if you think about whenever you go onto LinkedIn and you see your notifications, you haven't been on for a week, you see your notifications, there's a wee number 10, you go on, you see who's looked at you, you see who's commented on your post, you see what's been going, right? You go away from that, and all of a sudden a wee 2 pops up in that notification bar, right? That's not because 2 people just did something. That's called a hook, okay? So what LinkedIn is doing is they're training you to stay on their platform, right? They're training you to realize that the more you're on LinkedIn, the more you're going to get that positive feedback, that notification that somebody's interacting with you, right? So if we transfer this into how a chatbot works, you arrive along, it asks you a question, you reply. It asks you a question, you reply. It gives you immediate feedback on every single action you do to keep you hooked into that application process, to keep you feel like the company's interacting with you. And that's probably one of the biggest things that we see changing between driving candidates to a landing page or a job advert. You can have 15 form items to fill in on a landing page and people will disappear. You have 15 question responses in a chatbot and people go through the experience because it's a conversation. And that's kind of where it starts to transition into something that becomes really special. Now, whenever you're using intelligent automation chatbots, they are not expensive, okay? So back in my in-house recruitment days, I implemented numerous applicant tracking systems that went into the 6 and 7 figures, and it still terrifies me to think of that amount of money for the per software that we got. What we have with chatbots is we have a platform that integrates with user interfaces like Facebook Messenger, user interfaces like Slack, etc. So Facebook has invested billions in developing an awesome user experience. And that's great because I don't need to invest that money in developing that user experience because Facebook's already done it. And I just chat to people with my software on Facebook. So you've got the awesome user experience of Facebook and you've got my conversational software in the background allowing me to focus on that artificial intelligence, natural language processing piece and allowing Facebook to focus on the user experience and the functionality and usability of the messenger system. So it becomes a really affordable solution to get some pretty advanced technology. I think I answered about 10 questions there, didn't I? Sorry, I do that. Anybody else with any questions? At the back, Mark.
Ian, where do chatbots not work at all, and where do they work brilliantly?
Okay.
In, obviously, recruitment terms.
Okay. So I believe chatbots don't work whenever you use them as a pure benefit for the recruiter. So if I'm a recruiter and I go, how am I going to make my process easier? You know what, I'll text everybody in my applicant tracking system as soon as they arrive in as an application, and I'll put them through a per screening experience on a chatbot. And then we'll contact the people that come out of that per screening experience that are successful, and we'll take them forward and we'll maybe do something with the rest. If you come to me with a project like that, I will say no, okay? Chatbots are there to provide functionality and automation for a recruiter, but they're largely there to provide candidate experience, improved candidate experience, mass personalization at scale. And that's where they work really well. So you enter into a situation where a candidate knows that they're talking to a robot, but they're getting the same sort of positive experience, in fact sometimes a better experience than if they were talking to a person at the other end. If you think of how a chatbot could be used in an HR sense, you think of the guy emailing HR and saying, my wife's pregnant, I want to do a split maternity-paternity sort of agreement, can you help me through that? And the HR person goes, oh no, I've never dealt with that before. I personally have never dealt with that before, so I'm going to go away for 2 weeks, talk to 15 people, and come back to you with an answer eventually. Whereas the chatbot, if it's dealt with that before, it goes away, finds the relevant information, and provides it back within a second. So you think of the methods that you can actually improve conversations by using technology, allowing the recruiters to spend their time at that value-add stuff, where it's interview, where it's candidate experience later in the stage, where you're actually kind of you're speaking to the people that actually matter and can actually add value to your business.
Also, the amount of connotations that there must be some holes, where it doesn't necessarily work. And I'm not being overtly negative, but when I ask Alexa to go and mow the lawn, she won't do it, and she just says she doesn't answer the question, and I'm sort of left at that kind of point where I'm quite excited about something. And of course, I know that's just an example, but there's probably a bad example as well. But I'm just keen to, there must be some situations where you're asking. I mean, how many layers do you actually go before you kind of get that, well, I don't really know type of thing, and that's when the shine comes off it. Has it been around long enough that really a lot of those holes have been plugged?
Okay, so no. Okay, but
I'm not picking a fight with you.
but we have stuff that facilitates this, right? So first off, you ask my chatbots to mow the lawn. I'm going to break it to you now. They're not going to do it, right? You ask my chatbots something that we have not programmed into its intelligence, and it's going to struggle to handle that, right? So we do an awful lot of work, and this is where, so we run our IA and AI chatbots on the same platform. So an intelligent automation chatbot can be upgraded to an artificial intelligence chatbot at a later stage if you find that's right for your business, right? The big thing is the time it takes to actually program in that early education of making it smart enough to handle conversations. So you need to build out all of your intents, you need to build out all of your natural language strings. For every single action that happens in the chatbot, we probably need to build out 30 different ways of saying that to have a product that can actually go quickly to market for you. So the example there is artificial intelligence is whenever it's born into a chatbot, it's like a baby. It can't do anything for itself. And if you think that you are going to allow a chatbot to develop itself over time, that's going to become challenging. In fact, there's been some really horrible use cases of that. There was a chatbot on Twitter that was trained to be far right. Very racist, very nasty person.
And they did that in like 24 hours.
Yeah. So there's examples of that. So there is, you can't leave machine learning truly unsupervised at the minute. In the conversational sense. In other stuff that we've heard about today, you can. But in the conversational sense, you can't. So what we do, to answer your question, because I'm waffling again, what we do is, if it doesn't understand something, we present a series of options. This is what we can help you with today. We don't say, I don't know this yet. We say, this is what we can help you with today. This is the positive response that we can do to help you gain value from the chatbot. The other thing that we do is, if it looks like, so in the more advanced chatbots, if it looks like somebody isn't getting a good user experience, we flip the switch to real person. Okay? So whenever we're working with a client, particularly that has a follow the sun recruitment team, where essentially they work 24/7 because they have teams in different areas, we integrate with a number of different systems so we can put that conversation straight into Slack. So we can have your recruitment team globally sitting with a Slack account, and we can handle the conversation between Slack and Facebook Messenger, or Slack and whatever the other platform is, so that whenever somebody has exhibited an intent that they're not getting what they want, we flip the switch and it goes straight on to live person, and a real person handles that conversation. Is one of the ways that we do fallback. Lovely. Any other questions? No. Okay. How much more time do we have? Do we have another 15 minutes to go on? And yeah.
5.
Another 5 minutes.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. So
West's lifetime now.
this is West lifetime. I wanted to ask back about the programmatics, because this is actually something that really interests me at the minute. So there was one of the largest recruitment agencies in the UK, let's not pull the names out, hit the press recently because their job ads for cleaners and kitchen staff were being served predominantly to software developers, because they tried to use some fairly incorrect version of artificial intelligence to do their programmatic buying, right? It hit the press, it was horrible, right? how do we avoid the challenges that come with this sort of new software?
Don't appoint idiot agencies, maybe. I mean, what is interesting is if we look at what's happened within the advertising world, and Programmatic's has had a lot of bad press, to be honest, and that is actually a small thing, because we had examples where in the press where people's ads are appearing next to ISIS videos. There is a huge thing about click fraud. Amazingly, 51% or more, I think it is now, of everyone that clicks on an advert is not actually a human being. And if you're paying on a per-click basis, as most programmatic advertising is, well, that's not a good thing. So you have to make sure that the suppliers that you're using are are proper suppliers. And to be fair, even the Googles and DoubleClicks of this world have had issues. And recently, I think YouTube implemented something where a site has to have more than a certain number of users before it will allow their advertising to appear, to stop this kind of niche hate type website appearing and your adverts appearing next to it. So actually, a lot has happened within that industry to improve it. And I think as recruiters, we want to know what's going to happen in the future. We only need to look at what's happening in the marketing industry as a whole today. If you look at automation tools like HubSpot, Infusionsoft, Pardo, they are going to guide how this thing will develop. And I think looking at programmatic today is a very different beast than programmatic was 10 years ago. I used to run a digital marketing agency, and I sold it before programmatic was even invented. So and whilst I'm old, I'm not that old. So it is very, very new, and it's the big brands with their big budgets that can experiment and try stuff and get wrong and appear in the press that are kind of helping the industry evolve and develop, so that for the rest of us, we can come along in and actually get a much more positive experience after they've made the mistakes. We used to work with Nike as a client when I had worked in the agency world. And Nike's thing was, we're only interested in world firsts. Now, there aren't that many world firsts that you can actually do, but that type of organization, trailblazing, allows everybody else to then come in and follow and do kind of business as usual behind it, and let them make the mistakes first. However, as a recruiter doing this stuff, it is now past that stage. All the lessons that to be learned have been learned. So it is now out there and available. And if you do want to target people in this way, actually it's a really good way of doing so.
Yeah.
Rich?
Richard, if I can round off this conversation, right? So you're looking at innovation and recruitment tech all the time, right? Which means you're using new technology all the time, which can be challenging. Yep. How do you go about de-risking it for your business and for your client's business when you're bringing new technology?
So we're in a lucky scenario whereby we have the Capita Group, which is almost our test bed. So we don't take anything into our external client world that we haven't tested within our own organisation first, which gives me an opportunity to really test the market properly. I've got a leadership team that is encouraging innovation and encouraging us to find the right tech solutions to enable us to go to the external market. And I've got an internal structure that enables us to actually trial it, see how it works, throw it away if it doesn't work, and look for the next big thing. Okay, great. And if anybody in the room was looking to innovate but de-risk, what would be your top tip? On the spot, sorry. I don't know, that's a big question. From me, okay, so from me, it's don't take on the world with one thing. Well, I mean, that's definitely true, right? So I think if I look at all of the things that we're trying to find technology solutions for, what we've done is we've looked at every single process there is across the whole process. Yep. And what we're trying to do is identify the things that actually can make a difference from whether that be a return on investment, whether that be a cost in revenue, whether that be an efficiency, rather than trying to find a solution for everything, because the danger is that you just overload yourself with tech solutions that just creates a mess. Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for
quick question.
Sticking with my voice.
Quick question.
A question.
So, Richard, is ClickIQ a self-serve model for recruitment teams?
No.
So they tell you what you want,
no,
and then your team does it for them?
I'm being facetious, sorry. So it's a bit of both. Once a client is set up, they should be able to manage it themselves very easily. We are looking at implementing a self-serve model for smaller recruiters, but most of our clients are very large volume recruiters at the moment. So we kind of onboard people, we test, we stick jobs out organically to start with so it's free, then we do the sort of the small pilot, make sure it works, make sure that our clients understand how to use the system, and then after that the whole thing becomes automated. But it's automation with a level of user override, so if you want to, if you want to never look at it again, you can never look at it again. But in reality, you always get a phone call from someone saying, I really need this person now, I need more applications. And then you can override and boost and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of using a bit of both in reality. The actual optimization is run by our AI. So the machine learning piece runs and optimizes campaigns in real time because we got over 40,000 jobs going through it. And it's just physically impossible for a human being to do that stuff. So, we can crunch much more quickly the big data and make decisions that a human being could never do. So it's about using both, but you can use it as either.
And do people need to be recruitment marketers in order to engage with you and all this stuff, or can mainstream talent acquisition people do it?
Absolutely not. It's as simple as can be, but thank you for asking.
All right.
Thank you very much, guys.